welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I'm your host today, Jen, and today I am joined by the author of an absolutely lovely work of fiction. It is such a touching and moving and often very funny read, and I'm so excited to talk about all of those things. So welcome. Could I ask you to introduce yourself and your book, please?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm Leslie Rasmussen. I've written 3 books, but this one is called When People Leave. And it's really the story of 3 sisters and a single mother. And the sisters find out that their mother killed herself, and they thought everything was great. And so they go on a journey to find out why. And they find out a whole bunch of secrets that they never knew about her and themselves.
Yeah, you would not think that a book with that description would be as humorous as it is while still remaining so touching and so moving. Before I get into this new book, however, could you tell us a little bit about your journey as a writer and the things that you wrote before this?
Sure. I started out as a TV sitcom writer, so that's where you get the humor from. And I did that for quite a few years. And then I stopped doing that, raised my kids. And during that time, I wrote over 20 articles for Huffington Post, and those were all humorous. And then I decided I was going to try to write a book. And my first book was called After Happily Ever After, and that came out in 2021. My second book came out in 2023, and it was called The Stories We Cannot Tell. And my third book is When People Leave, and that came out this year.
Nice. I'm really curious about, how your career as a TV writer sort of affected your movement into like this emotional fiction. You've already talked about that that's where the humor injection comes from. Are there other ways that your jobs in TV prepared you for the life of the novelist?
The best preparation I had was dialogue because television is all dialogue. So I learned how to do not just jokes because I my books aren't jokey, they're more like witty, humorous dialogue. And I learned how to write from a character's point of view because in television, obviously, you have the actors. So you're writing for them and you kind of develop the character around who that actor is and how they play it. And your books obviously are very different. But I really like writing dialogue that comes out of a character's mouth that fits that character.
Hmm. Yeah, establishing different voices is really important, both in a sitcom and for a novel like this that is so much about relationships. So let's talk a little bit about developing the sisters, Morgan, Charlotte, and Abby. Could you tell us a little bit about them? And perhaps if there was a sister whose voice was the easiest to crack, and if there was one that was the most challenging.
Sure. Yes, those are the 3 sisters. Morgan is the oldest, and she is a sober alcoholic. And Charlie is the middle one, and she is in a relationship that she knows should be over, but she still hasn't ended it. And the third one is Abby, and they're all about 2 years apart. And Abby is the baby, but she married the first guy that she ever went out with from middle school, and she has 4 kids, very young, all under the age of 6. And the characters, it's very funny for me. I develop a character by the name. Once I come up with the name, for some reason, that character, I can see that person in my mind. So that's kind of how I develop them. And then in this case, each character had to have something specific to what the secrets were. And I don't want to give away the secrets, but as I went along, I could sort of figure out different secrets that were going to happen and then go back and form those characters, how they would be and why they did what they did, according to not even knowing what these secrets were, but these secrets affected them from the time they were little. So that was really how I developed those characters. I just kept going over them until I figured out like exactly what their issues were related to the secrets, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. I really did appreciate all of their voices. And even though they all had such different lives, had made such different choices, and were at totally different phases in their life too. They all felt really relatable and had something that I could connect with. As myself, as an oldest sibling in a family, I did connect a lot with Morgan. Um,
Mm.
yeah, is there somebody who felt sort of closest to home for you, or who felt most like writing from yourself, or is that not something you really think about when you write?
Well, I have two sisters, and I always wanted to write something with three sisters, but I didn't want any of them to be even close to any of us by, just like who we were. So, but the dialogue in it, a lot of it is from my childhood and from my sisters and I are very close, but we give each other a lot of crap because that's fun, it's like sarcastic stuff. And so I wanted to put that into the book. And so some of that dialogue is actually from my childhood or from conversations I have with my sisters now. So I think that's one of the things that makes it more realistic is those conversations are real. So that's kind of what I enjoy doing is pulling from my childhood and from my life.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's really interesting. And like it's a nice way to share those memories with the new
Yeah,
audience,
exactly. Yeah.
contextualize them. I'm really curious about the use of humor, especially in establishing their relationships with each other, because it is something that like can really unite siblings, like you have such a shared history, countless in jokes, that just like come up over the years, and that sort of humor being used over and over again makes it feel like this is a lived in relationship with history, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
I'm curious about how you use humor both to like they use it to not hurt each other, but to rib each other. And
Mhm.
they also kind of use it to connect and get closer. Yeah, how do you wield humor in different situations?
Well, for me, all three of my books really have to do with issues that women face in their lives as they go through their lives. And so I find that if you just look at what the book is about on some of my books, you might say, oh, wow, that might be really heavy. So I always add humor. So anything that happens in the book doesn't feel depressing. There's always a lightness to it. And you're right. I mean, the sisters do rib each other, but I wanted to make positive sure that everybody understood that they totally love each other and that when things happen that they need each other, they are there. They just like to, play back and forth and give each other the finger and all the things that siblings, I think, really do.
Hmm. It captures that way that like as I go about my life now as a 42-year-old librarian, I feel very grown up, very
Mhm.
sophisticated, very emotionally rational. But when you put me in a room with my siblings, we all regress like at least 15 years,
Yes,
all those.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Mine too. Or we laugh about things that our parents did. We give our mother the same kind of ribbing from things that happened when we were a kid. You read the book. Did you
Yeah.
read the book? Okay, so in that scene where they're talking, I don't know if you remember this, but they're talking about how their mother took all the rolls and hid them and to put them in her purse. My mother did that one time and she was like, "Oh, we're just going to take them all." And when the waiter came over and said, "Oh, do you want more rolls?" We were like, "Sure." It was just really funny because she wanted to picnic the next day, so she took all these rolls, and I always thought that was the funniest thing. So that's why it ended up in the book.
That is really funny. I do love that scene. And it all feels like really authentic. Yeah, they feel like authentic memories. And I think that does give like a weight to the characters because it does feel so real.
Yeah.
Um, so you have all these different points of view from the sisters. We also receive the story of their mother, Carla. And, I don't want you to spoil anything that you don't want to spoil. So I'm going to keep it like real vague how I ask this.
Okay.
But I'd love to know about how you paced out her story, because stories like that have like shifting perspectives, it's really important, to keep all the stories at pace and to make sure, especially when there's like a lot of revelations and secrets and surprises. How different did your later drafts look from the first? Did you write everybody's story all at once, or did you switch between them as you were writing?
I had a developmental editor. And so when we talked about it originally, and she said, you can do this, because my first book is from first person. My second book is from two people's point of views. And this one was going to be from four. And I thought, okay, I kind of need that because I need people to see why Carla is who she is and why she made the decisions she made and go into her backstory. And the same thing with the sisters, because you kind of go into their lives too. So I really just wanted to make sure you sort of saw all the points of view from there. And developing that was not easy only because every time, like if the chapter starts from Carla, then I have to remember it's only Carla's point of view. And even though it's not coming from the first person, like I, blah, 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 everything that is said in either the sisters or hers has to be just straight from their point of view. And so that can be challenging because you have to remember that whatever she sees is, you can't say this other character sees something or that this character knows how this character feels because it's from her point of view. You have to say it from, well, I see on the expression of her face, she's not happy with whatever. But you can't say so and so is just not happy. So yes, I had to check it over and over and over again to make sure everything stayed from that person's point of view in whatever chapter I was in.
Mm. That's a really interesting point, and not something I've ever really thought about that much, that you as the writer, like you are omniscient, like you know what everybody knows, but not all
Exactly.
characters know what everybody knows. That's a real challenge I had never thought of.
It is because you have to make sure that whatever you say, and you don't give away secrets. Like you have to leave breadcrumbs without giving too much away. But just enough that the audience, the reader, is knowing, oh, okay, I kind of don't really see this. But then when they get to the secret, they go, oh, that makes sense. That's why that happened. So all of that is a challenge, but I enjoyed doing it. I mean, my first book, when I did it from the first person, that was also a challenge because you can't have anything off screen, so to speak. You can't, that person is everything is from their point of view. So that's why in my first book, I put in two other points of view, every scattered throughout, so you would know what was going on with two other people in the book.
Nice. That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, and I imagine that as you went on with your novels and you sort of expanded the number of points of view and perspective, that sort of, as you are mastering the craft, you are challenging yourself yet further, to
Yes.
the
Yes.
structure.
It's all a challenge because coming from TV, which was sitcoms are, 30 minutes. So you're taking basically 26 pages, maybe 30 pages, and you're turning that into a 300-page book and arcing the whole thing and, doing an outline for the whole thing. I was used to doing an outline, but not like this. So it was a big challenge to learn. I mean, my first book actually took me 4.5 years. The second book took me a year, and the third book took me under a year. So I'm kind of figuring it out as I go along.
Nice. Did the shift from TV to writing novels also change like your practice in the day to day? Because the one thing that occurs to me is that like TV has just like constantly, cascading deadlines that you have to meet like
Yes.
over and over and over again. Whereas like a novel is probably like longer term deadlines with a lot more like self-managed in your day to day. How did that experience differ?
Well, the first novel I did on my own. And so I didn't have a deadline, but I tried to write all the time. My second and third novel, I had a developmental editor, like I said, but what she did was I would meet with her twice a month. So I had to have pages done to send to her so she could edit them. And then we talked on the phone and she could talk to me about her notes. So that was a deadline. I'm writing another book right now and I don't have a deadline. But I try to write as often as I can. It's just you're promoting one book, you're looking at other things, you're putting ads up, you're doing podcasts. It's there's a lot of stuff happening. So I don't really give myself a deadline. I do sit at the computer every day, usually from like 10 to 4, 10 to 5, except on weekends. And I try to write and I try to do other things. So at least I'm working, so to speak.
Nice. Yeah, I imagine that like balancing like the writing itself with also all of the promotional work that you have to do, like this conversation itself is all part of that.
It is. And sitcoms, you have so many people. You're on staff with other people.
Mm.
So nothing is really written by one person, so to speak. The outline is done, with a room, and then you might rewrite it and they might look at it and give you notes. And then you write a first draft, and then there's always people to go to ask questions to help you. And like I said, there's actors, and then there's a director, and then there's prop people. So you're not designing every single thing that you're designing in a book where you have to describe where they are and describe the setting and the weather and everything and create these characters. So it's challenging, but it's kind of more fun in some ways, but it's actually way harder. So,
I bet. Yeah, because you are making all of those decisions for yourself that you'd usually be sharing with like a huge staff,
yeah.
which is very freeing because you can do whatever you want. You don't experience like the pushback. But at the same time, like yeah, you have infinite choices now. And that
And
just
that makes it hard. Yes, exactly.
um, so something that I really loved about the book was there's a little bit of travel that goes on as the sisters are learning new things and want to uncover more answers to the questions that they have. And my favorite section, probably of all, are the scenes in Brooklyn, sort of the experience of the art world. Um, can you talk a little bit about why you chose Brooklyn in particular? Obviously, as a New Yorker, I am very biased and personally
Ah,
question.
okay. Yes, of course. Personally, I love New York, and I've never been to Brooklyn. I
Mm.
did so much research. I just didn't want it to take place in New York City because it's so big. And so I did a lot of research about Brooklyn, and it sounded like this wonderful place. And I knew other people that lived there and loved it. So I just did a lot of research. And that's why it looks like I've been there, but I haven't. I have been to Henderson, Nevada, 'cause my sister lives there. So I've been to Vegas many times. I've been to Henderson, but I hadn't been to Brooklyn.
Oh,
And I don't know why, I just really wanted scenes taking place there.
wow. That's very surprising and very impressive because I would
Thank
not have
you.
known from reading it that you hadn't
Oh,
been.
good. Well, that's a big compliment. Thank you.
And I also just like the way that those scenes treat art, and sort of like the extreme like transformative effect that art can have on a person's life. Because
Mhm.
the scene just where yeah, of looking at art and sort of like describing how it can sort of like break you open, and like discover vulnerabilities that you didn't know you had. Yeah, that was just really beautiful. I loved that.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. That's so nice.
Yeah. What are you, so you mentioned that there's something that you're working on right now. What is on your horizon as a writer?
I am working on it's kind of a rom-com. I'm having fun with it. It's back to first person. So I'm doing that right now, and I'm about a little over halfway through. And I'm also I hired a narrator for the audiobook for when people leave. So I'm also listening to it to make sure to go through it because I have to follow the whole book as she finished it and make sure there's no mistakes or anything. So, which is weird to hear my own words being said by somebody else. It's just odd.
That sounds fascinating. Yeah. Are there like when you listen to the narrator read it, um, does it ever surprise you? Because I guess it's a little bit like with TV, like your words are going to be performed and they might find something that wasn't there or perform it in a different way than you maybe expected they would. Does that happen while you listen to the audiobook too?
A little bit. I mean, I had her audition. I had a whole bunch of people audition. And what I gave them were a couple of places that I wanted them to either pause or emphasize, and I wanted to see how they did it. And this woman did an amazing job of getting the witty dialogue and getting the quote unquote jokes. And so that's why I hired her. She's in SAG. I mean, she's a working actress. And I just had a feeling. So when I listened to it and I'm like, good, she got it. I mean, that's really what I'm also looking for is how she plays the voices and everything else.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, because with humor too, like the timing is really important and you want
Exactly. That's why I mean, because some people, when they read it, they went so quickly through it that they didn't pause for the humor, and you have to pause at certain points or emphasize, and they didn't. So I was like, okay, they're gone, they're gone. But then I found this woman, and she was very good.
Oh, cool. Well, it's very interesting to have insight, not only into your writing process, but yeah, into the process of having your book turned into an audiobook. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your book with our listeners and with me. I think it's going to be a really popular one here.
Oh, thank you so much. And just so you know, I spent my entire childhood in libraries. my mother would take all my sisters and I, and we would go to the library and we'd pick out books, and it was so exciting. So I am a huge library fan.
Hey, thank you. Libraries love you too. So that's
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Okay, listeners, please check out When People Leave, a story of love, lies, and finding the truth. It's absolutely beautiful. I think it's a really good book for heading into the holiday season and thinking about family and history. It's just a really lovely read. Your book club will love it. Like, this is a great, great book club book. All right. Thank you all for joining us. It is now time to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.